Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, is a familiar giant on the global stage, but its economic story, heavily reliant on oil export, paints an incomplete picture. As the world shifts towards renewable energy and volatile oil prices threaten stability, diversifying export revenues and avenues has become a national imperative. 2024 presents a crucial year for this endeavor, demanding targeted action across various sectors. So this morning, Bamidele Ayemibo, who's an export consultant, will be talking to us on this. It's nice, and it's a pleasure having you around.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
From your perspective, what are the biggest obstacles to diversifying Nigeria's exports beyond oil?
All right. The diversification drive, I think, is more of political will on the part of the government than a number of other issues. It's more of political will. The new administration has been on now for more than 6 months, even though we have someone at the helm of affairs of Nigerian Export Promotion Council. A number of efforts is being made by her, but at the level of the presidency, we've not seen a lot in terms of a deliberate step and effort in that direction. And this has happened across different administrations. You see a situation in which we know as a country we need to grow forest generation, non-oil export, but you can't see deliberate effort in that direction. For example, if you want to grow non-oil export in Nigeria, we need to have facility to support financing export that is easily accessible to everybody that is qualified. Number two, we need a framework that allows people to take bigger risk within that sector by virtue of export credit insurance. Number three, we need to deliberately increase the number of businesses that are exporting in Nigeria. Last year, we're still waiting for the data of last year. 2022, the NPC CEO confirmed that we have 1,172 exporters. Some countries like Ghana, South Africa, some other have 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. US over 200,000. UK over 100,000 in a country that is in size smaller than Nigeria. So this deliberate step, and even when government functionaries give speeches around economy and what they are doing, we've not seen a lot of effort in this regard. So I don't want to say it's too early in the day, but we're in a new year, so we're hoping that maybe from this year we'll begin to see some of those things that we think the government should begin to look at to be able to grow non-oil exports in Nigeria.
Yes, even as we delve into what is to be expected in this new year, we know that oil and gas exports still account for about over 80% of Nigeria's total exports. And the talk has always been about the government not having that political will, and the government not doing enough to support non-oil exports and businesses in order to liberate its economy. Now, looking at this administration, we have a 2024 budget that's already in place, and we've seen different policies of government and body language of this particular administration. Do you think there's anything that points to the fact that it is hoping to shift away from the norm and try as much as possible to start looking at areas whereby it can further open up its economy?
So far, no. So far, no. You know, NEPC got a 50 billion just after COVID to support non-oil exports, and the money got to a number of Nigerians, businesses, and sincerely, I can say today, I know people that, but for that money, they will not be able to build their factory or expand their factory the way it is to boost their production because of that grant. I didn't see that in this budget. I don't know what the Ministry of Trade is doing. I don't know if they have that in mind, but I know typically if this is in the works, they will have mentioned it, will have been in the news, they will have announced it, just like the way they did at that administration. So I'm not seeing anything, any unique initiative that is going to change the way we do things, the way it is right now. I can't now. I might be wrong. Maybe, I mean, as the event unfold, we'll be able to, but as far as I'm concerned, based on the budget I presented, I can't see that yet.
Now, are there any specific sectors or industries that you believe hold the most potential for export growth in 2024 for Nigeria?
Yes. Now, this is the way we should look at it. If you look at the total global export, it's about $24.5 trillion. Global export, $24.5 trillion. Now, out of that, that's trading goods. Trading services is about 6 trillion. So total trade in the world is about 30 trillion. Out of that, about 60% is intermediate goods. And I will explain that. About 20% is primary product. About 20% is finished goods. Now, by intermediate good, I mean from cocoa to cocoa butter, from cashew to cashew kernel, from shea nut to shea butter, from lead to lead ingot. You see those intermediate products, the demand for them is now on the rise because a lot of developed countries, they don't want to buy primary commodity the way they used to because the effluent is affecting the environment. And this issue around environmental stability is making some of them not to want to process some of those primary commodities in their environment to preserve the environment. So most of them are processed in the country where they are produced or in other developing countries. So if we want to grow non-oil export in Nigeria, we don't need to focus on finished product. We need to begin to look at how do we tap into this intermediate product that, according to WHO, is taking about 50 to 60% of the volume of export in the world. We need to be very strategic. So we need to begin to check how we can process into those intermediate products and take a position in that way. What that will do for us as a nation is to create jobs back at home and make us to earn more. It will make us to earn more in terms of effects rather than staying with primary commodity. But for that to happen, government will need to support from power. Now, because we don't have we have issue with power and logistics and road, government will need to give a lot of incentive. The last administration was doing an incentive for exporters that was stopped, although the argument was that, okay, FX then there was about 300 naira difference. The IE window was about 400 and something. Parallel market was 700 and something. And that government was trying to ensure they cover the gap of the exchange differentials. But beyond that, because I'm going to export, Red Sea is currently having issue. It's making cost of shipment to be going up by 40, 50, 60%. So it's a big issue for shipping. And the cost of shipment is high. What countries are doing is to support the businesses to be able to keep growing. I mean, farmers are having issue in Germany because government support them. They want more subsidy to be able to do more. So if we want us to be able to grow non-oil export, there must be subsidy, there must be support. Now, it's not subsidy where you hand over money. You can decide that, okay, freight from Nigeria, our major destination, let's say India, freight from Nigeria, let's say is 1,500, you want to pay 50% of it. So, and that means the shipping line send the list of shipment that was done with the bill of lading and container number they can reference, and government can credit them directly. That way we can see the money going to the productive sector of economy to be able to assist businesses in logistics, in shipment, different kind of subsidy to be able to increase the volume of production so that we can begin to, even though my cost of production is high, the subsidy of government, the support of government is dropping my cost and still making me profitable. But I think we should focus on, irrespective of the sector, intermediate product. Either you are dealing with commodity, agro-commodity, or you are dealing with solid minerals. Dealing on intermediate product or finished product should be an area the government needs to take very seriously.
So that will now bring us to the point where we begin to ask ourselves, where will the government raise, or how will the government raise the funds to support or to provide a subsidy along this sector? Because the notion or the feelers we keep getting is that this government is cash-strapped. There are a lot of challenges affecting the Nigerian economy. There are debts being paid, and the government is saying it's not having enough funds to. There's even a deficit in the budget, and there aren't enough funds to run with the budget for the fiscal year. So, how do you think the Nigerian government can raise the revenue for that? We know that there are equally issues around the agricultural sector. There's the herders-farmer clashes. There is the insurgent attacks going on. Investors are scared to put their money into the Nigerian economy because of its volatility. They're not sure they're able to reap dividends. Where will the cash come from for the Nigeria to support this sector?
Now, for cash, I don't think the issue of Nigeria is cash. I'll look at it from two perspectives. The first one, I think sometimes we have misplaced priorities. So look at the issue that have happened now with this scandal in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Look at this that have happened. Instead of giving handouts to Nigerians, why don't we support this manufacturing sector to create more jobs so that the people can be more engaged rather than giving handouts? Because the disbursing of funds directly, for me, it's also a way of impoverishing the people because it doesn't make the people productive. Apart from maybe people that are old, that can't work again, apart from those ones, but a number of other people, because they are poor, why don't we channel that money? Can we channel that money to help manufacturing sector to grow and create more jobs? Because the money is being stolen already. So we should evaluate our priorities. Where are we putting the money? Can we begin to channel some of the money we are putting into some of these areas? For example, when you hear that government is spending about 5 or 6 billion to build a car park for legislation, that's not a priority for us. We can reprioritize and tell ourselves, okay, what do we really want to do? We want to increase employment. Okay, how do we increase employment? We need to grow the production, both the the primary production and manufacturing. Now, let me now tell you another thing the government can do. In the oil and gas sector today, one of the ways government make money is by joint venture arrangement that allow the oil major to drill the oil, but for whatever they get out of the ground, government get a percentage directly. Why can't we do the same in mining? What we have in Nigeria, we have billions of tons in deposit for coal, millions of tons in deposit for lead and zinc. We have a lot of minerals. So government can have technical partners who will come and do the mining, and government have a sharing formula with them. If we want to generate income, we can. What we have done is, because we make a lot of money from crude oil, we have not harnessed other sector of the economy where the government can make more money. I think there is need for a lot of rethinking to be able to generate income directly, not just in taxes, but direct income the way we have it in the oil and gas sector.
Yes, talking about rethinking, we need to refocus and look at other industries like the creative industry, the e-commerce industry, and we know that these two areas also have potential for growth and revenue contribution to the Nigerian economy. But then when we look at these two areas, that is the e-commerce and the creative industry, what are the barriers, what are the challenges, and how do you think that the Nigerian government can tap into the resource they provide if it hopes to improve its economic prospects?
Service exports is what you're talking about. Service export is about, out of the $30 trillion trade in the world, service export is about 5 to 6 trillion, if not going to 7 trillion already. So what we've not done as a nation is to formalize this sector. For example, in Nigeria, if you are exporting, you fill an application form for export of goods. Can we have an application form for export of services? Number one, there must be sensitization on export of services. There are businesses in Nigeria who can export their services. For example, as a business, we have people that are not in Nigeria that subscribe to our service from outside the country. That is service export. If you are a consultant in Nigeria and you consult for businesses outside Nigeria, that is service export. So what government need to do is they need to now make available a modality to document this service export in the creative industry, in the e-commerce sector, document this service export so that when I render service, and there are different modes of service export, either because I'm here and I'm rendering the service and delivering through the internet, or I travel about to deliver the service, or someone comes to my location to receive the service. These are all service sectors. So we need to come up with modalities to document, just the way we have a way of documenting non-oil tangible good export. We can do the same for intangible service export. But to get people to fill those forms and document it, government must incentivize. Generally people tend to want to cover up what they are doing that people will not know for a reason best known to them. But you can actually incentivize if people know, if I declare this particular service and I'm going to get a particular support from the government or incentive from the government, That will also encourage people to declare, and we can begin to capture this service export within the Nigerian economy.
And finally, to wrap things up, we know that there are different arrangements or programs within African countries to help boost trade, cargo movement, and all that. Notably, of all of them is the AfCFTA. That particular agreement is said to be pivotal for the growth of Nigeria's economy, intra-trade movement, and all that. So how can Nigeria leverage its regional trade agreements to boost non-oil exports?
You know, the regional trade is still the same problem. It doesn't matter whether I'm shipping to Europe, Asia, and America. Number one, AfCFTA, trading has started. Nigeria has not started trading. Now, when I talk about political will, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Nigeria wanted to even host the headquarters of this. We could not hold that headquarters because we didn't sign on time. Now we've signed, we've ratified, but we have not started trading. The modality for trading is out. I understand the last administration already presented to the private sector input, and they're supposed to move it to the president for approval. That approval is yet to come out. So that's what I said when I said, I'm not seeing Minister of Trade, I'm not seeing the president and his handler talking about how it is important for Nigeria to grow non-oil export. How it's important. I don't know what is in the works they are doing, but it's something we need to talk about. So now, for example, the president should be talking about AfCFTA. The National Action Committee chairman should be reporting to the AfCFTA. Let me give you another example of this issue. Do you know sometimes an agency of government is charging, for example, airport? An NEPC official at an event have talked about the fact that landing fee of airline is high. The cost of is making the cost of shipment by air to be high. They wrote them to say that they can work on that fee. The fund did not agree, but both of them are reporting to the same government. Imagine if NEPC director is reporting to the presidency, and this issue can be ironed out directly. I think we help us, either AfCFTA or others.
Bamidele Ayemibo, exports consultant. I see how passionate you are about Nigeria. I will hope that all these will be taken into consideration by the Nigerian government. We appreciate your contribution anyway, most especially for gracing our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.